asking whether or not these PowerPoints are going to be available afterwards. Like, some of these could be very helpful for a lot of communities. So if you are willing to share your PowerPoint, please let me or Graham or Lori, let someone know, and then we can send them out.
I'm going to try to make up some time. Michela's going to help me, and Gary's going to help me, so that we can get to lunch on time. Gary just came in from PA. I'm going to go through just a few pictures and some slides of some of the things that's been learned in the scientific field in the last few years, and how we've been working with folks at Cumberland House, and then I'm going to pass it on to these two to say a few words. So when I first started working in Saskatchewan in 2011, I was invited to Cumberland House by Carriere here to go and study what I thought was a flood. And we actually learned about many more complex issues that were going on in the Saskatchewan River Delta. And the Delta is kind of a signal that there's something going wrong with water, not just in the Delta, but in the Saskatchewan River Basin. So the Saskatchewan River Basin, if you know, here's a picture of it and a map in the background, but most of the water that flows through the Delta and the Saskatchewan River Basin actually comes from the Rocky Mountains. Most of it from snowmelt and a little contribution from glaciers at the end of the year. As it goes downstream, it ends up in these irrigation districts, and they're the biggest drawer of water throughout the Saskatchewan River Basin. There's also some thirsty cities, like our very own Paris on the Prairie, and there's also a lot of reservoirs that interrupt the natural flow of the water as it comes downstream. And then, of course, the Saskatchewan River Delta. So there's a lot of stresses going on upstream that influence how water flows through the Delta. Now, among all this, there's some bigger changes going on around the world. This chart up here, don't worry about the numbers too much, but it's a show of temperature since 1950. And every decade has been sequentially warmer over that period of time since 1950. And that's as a result of human-induced climate change. And if you look over here, the number of days with winter snow cover, particularly in the Rocky Mountains, where most of our surface water for rivers come from, is actually decreasing. The amount of snow cover over the year is going down as a result of warming. And then the temperature is going up a little bit, but in particular, the wintertime temperature is really going up. So it's going up in some places as much as 6 degrees in the far north. On average, about 2 degrees in this area. So this is a significant challenge. Because if we want to provide water for people, we have to recognize that we're going to be in a new set of circumstances as we move forward. And then, of course, the Saskatchewan River at the top, as a result of the infrastructure we put on the river, there's changes in flows. So the flows are getting generally pushed down towards this lower flow area. That's why the thick bars are formed. And the variability is also decreasing. So the floods aren't as big, and the lows are, in some cases, getting lower over on an average, but the really low lows aren't as low. And this is what part of the Delta might look like in a drought. So normally a lot of this would be filled with water, but in this significant drought, there's not as much water flowing through this whole system. It's called the Gulf belt. And here's what the Delta looks like. This is a picture in 2014. And this is the intake plant for the drinking water plant in the northern village of Cumberland House. This is the intake pipe. So in that particular year, there was such a low amount of water because of so many demands upstream that they had to pump water into their intake, directly into their water treatment plant. So pretty significant. And of course, the glaciers are changing, and people tend to conflate glacier change with lack of drinking water. It does have an effect more on ecosystem services. At the end of the sort of summer and into the fall, the glaciers are really important, and we know that they're retreating. And if we don't do something to get ahead of this warming, then eventually, in the very distant future, they could disappear altogether, which is a significant concern. So here's a picture in 2015 of the black line is what's normally coming down the river, and then the blue line is what was actually coming down the river. This is just after a major irrigation district on the whole river. So you can see that the human demands are causing us to go outside of these normal bounds, and the effects in the Saskatchewan River Delta were significant. So for all of us who depend on water from downstream of the Rocky Mountains, we're definitely affected by lower flows in that particular year. So we've been working with folks in the Saskatchewan River Delta for about 5 years, and 2 years ago we started a Delta Stewardship plan. So taking the work that Bob's been doing, really, the kind of template of an approach to work in Indigenous planning, working upstream, talking to people, getting here, you talking to people upstream, to let people know that the delta's there and that it's experiencing some significant declines. The biggest concern that people mentioned to us was water. They wanted to see more water in the delta. So I'm going to pass it off now to Michela, and then we'll pass it off here.
Okay, so I'm Michela Carriere.
I'm
I'm 26 years old, Métis Cree woman from Cumberland House. This is our place where we live. We live in a trap line. We're about 50 kilometers from Cumberland House. So main water concerns for my family. We drink straight from the rivers. We don't have a water treatment in our little area. And flooding and also infrastructure like living below the dam. So, how does this sound?
right? Yeah, there you go.
Okay, and so this is during a flood year, and then this is the same year. The water goes up and down, fluctuates a lot because of the management of the dam, so that affects us. Is there? So here's the capital dam about 50 kilometers from us, and it affects our life. So traveling on the river, sometimes it's so low. Sometimes it's so low that
Hello. Okay, so sometimes the water is so low that we can't travel on the river, so we have to walk. So here's me, my mom and dad were walking from our place to get to Cumberland House, and we got to the road, we had to hitchhike in. You know, water is very important to our family. This is me and my dad duck hunting. We have an important like bird species, fish and mammals, and it's part of our life in the Cumberland area. This is me and my dad. We do a lot of data collection and working with the scientists. So this is us. We're out on Ben's Lake, which is close to our place, collecting data out there. I also do a lot of canoe trips with students in Cumberland House. So I'm a wilderness guide. So we like to educate the youth and really get them involved with the environment and land-based education. It's very important to us, because we want to create those, I guess, that passion for the delta and for the water with our students. We also do like different science experiments. So this is a beaver dissection that I did with some students. Also teach them like the traditional methods of skinning and preparing animals, which is, you know, culture, environment, very important to the youth. This is me and my dad. He was teaching me how to trap muskrats. We also, so he teaches it to me for, you know, the cultural reasons, very important. And I was also working with the university collecting samples of from the muskrats to see the effect of the environment on the muskrats, like the toxicity levels inside of their tissues. Here's me moose hunting with my dad. We're always using the river. It's paddling. And for the future of the delta, I'm an artist, a beadwork artist, and I use the delta as my inspiration and the Métis Cree culture. So I think that's really important for the youth, is to really use like water and the environment around water as inspiration for going forward. So this is my Facebook page there, and then this is another Facebook page I created after the Delta Days workshop. It's called Delta Action, and a few of us created this little logo, and we kind of want to create a brand going forward to get people involved, to create awareness about the Delta and water issues. So I have this Facebook page where we post different things, just trying to get, you know, technology and get more youth involved. So, and then here's another picture of my camp. So ideas for the future, I'm really interested in like health and healing, and ecotourism, ecotherapy is like a big passion of mine. So I would like to get more education and get the community involved with ecotherapy and whatnot. You'll have to ask me more questions about that. So anyways, I'll pass it over to Carriere.
Good morning, everybody. Carriere, Cumberland House. Land user, I guess, like trapping, fishing, and I'm an outfitter. And water, of course, like we've been, since the dam, we've been aware that the delta has been getting less water since they put in the 50s and on the Saskatchewan River. And of course, since then, we've been trying to alarm people outside of Cumberland, like what was happening to the delta, but never really got anywhere. Like, and then we see the decline of wildlife in that area because of the impact on the delta from controlling water upstream from us. I know it's not just water alone that's impacting the delta. Like it's of course like the quality of water is very important, like, because by putting delta reservoirs on the river, you're trapping all the sediment, and the sediment carrying nutrients to replenish the delta. Instead of nutrients coming down the river now, like we see, we're noticing algae blooms in our area because it's more shallower, so algae has a easier time blooming in the delta now, because along with farmers dumping their I guess a few years ago I noticed that a lot of drainage ditches were made to dry up their fields faster in the spring so they can put their crops for the summer. That's been a negative impact for the delta because all the pesticides, herbicides, the fertilizer that comes with that water that the delta supposedly, well, of course it needs. You know, a little story, like I was just thinking about what am I going to say when I get here. And I thought about my grandfather and his friend Eddie when I was a young guy. We didn't travel out of Cumberland much back in those days. Just I'm talking about 40 years ago. And then there's a little town called Nippon upstream from us. It's about a 2-hour car ride from Cumberland. And then those old timers, they were in their 70s at that time. And then we walked into one of this hardware store. It was called McLeod's store. And then we walked in there and we're walking down the aisles, and they noticed some wood on the aisles. They're being sold in a store. They were so amazed to see that. And then like, where's this world going to? Coming to? They're saying, hey, like they're selling wood in the stores now. They're saying, hey, like, and then my grandfather says, mark my word, my son. It won't be long into the future. You guys will be buying water from the stores. He's seen that. He's seen that this was coming. I know people, like elders, do have wisdom. 40 years ago, he told me that. And I know it's maybe 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, we started buying water. But at that time, nobody was buying water from the stores, but it's a common thing now today. And I guess it's to me, you question, like back in the days, we were drinking water from the river. And that's why they were amazed to start seeing these changes that were coming in, because they grew up not worrying about any type of pollution. But now with the influence, with more people in this world today, like in this province and this country we call Canada, we impact the environment more because there's just more people today. So there's more, like the environment very vulnerable now because I know industry, ministry, their goal is to keep us happy, to make things smooth here, and they'll do whatever it takes to keep us happy. And sometimes tend to forget the very, very most important thing that we need here to survive is that water. And then we're doing a darn good job of contaminating it, and I know, I don't know what it's going to be like 40 years from now. My grandfather warned me about these things that we'll be buying water from the store. 40 years from now, where will we be with water? You know, I've learned a lot through being involved with the water security. Like today, we're the only province in this country that don't have any kind of regulations with our aquifer. And we're already starting to be alarmed that we are damaging our water source. And nobody's saying about that. We just heard Graham talk about these droughts progressing. And the more into the future we're going to be fighting over this water, and we're not even thinking about what we're doing to the aquifer that we might be dependent on in the near future. That's something I think we have to start talking about too, because like the aquifer, the fracking that's happening, and you know, I don't know what chemicals they put in there, but I call it poison because that's what it is. If it's killing the environment, it's poison. And another scientist from another country told me, like, the fracking that's happening in Alberta, and if it hits the contamination that they're putting in our aquifer, it probably would, like, if it hits the right current, it won't even maybe take a year and a half to get to our province. And but you know, I'm glad that more and more people are being aware of what's happening with our water. And it's not only us people that are impacted, it's all the wildlife that's out there is definitely impacted, and it shows very, very clearly in our area because once we used to live off that land, and now we have to come out to the south to try and come and kill moose because they're all leaving that delta and they're telling us there's something wrong here. Like our muskrats don't survive in that water anymore. But I'm thankful that U of S has come to our area and started doing some research, and hopefully that we find the problem so we can start fixing it. So with that, I thank you for your time, and I hope that more and more people will be more aware that we need to educate there's a lot of people that don't know what's happening with our water, and we need to, I guess, get out there and educate people. And I'm just thankful that you guys took the time to be here, and I know you guys are concerned for the future of our water. Thank you.
Okay, folks, so that brings us to the end of our talks for this morning, and we wanted to get into a group discussion. Thanks, Rebecca. If you'll recall, on your tables, there's some sheets of paper. I wonder if just, given what you've heard this morning, if maybe you can write on some of those pieces of paper. So remembering that the green ones, write something down, anything down about water and health that you think is really important. Just as an individual. If you think it's very important, even more than just something that you're thinking about, write it down on the yellow piece of paper. And if you think it's urgent, then write it down on the red piece of paper. So just see what's on your table, grab what you can. There should be some markers on your table and some sheets. Start off, just pause for reflection on your own, and then we can maybe have some short discussions in the table groups, and then you'd like to hear back from the table groups, just before we get into lunch.